Hello, everybody. This is Brett Lonsdale from Lightning Tools, and welcome to another webinar with us. And today we're going to be talking about Microsoft Teams and how you can use the Microsoft, Lightning Tools products with inside of Microsoft Teams in order to build a solution. And the solution that we've decided to build today is actually around a leave booking system or holiday or vacation booking system wherever you are in the world. It all interprets to the same thing. So before we begin, just a quick introduction. We'll discover who Lightning Tools is, and I'll talk a little bit about the history of Lightning Tools before jumping into today's webinar, where we're going to take a look at around about 4 or 5 different products and how they can be used basically with inside Microsoft Teams as well as with inside SharePoint. So Lightning Tools, we were a company that was founded by myself back in 2007, and we have a US and a UK president. So in Orlando, Florida, where you'll find a small team there, and also in the UK, we're just based outside of on the Leicestershire, Northamptonshire border, for those of you who are interested in that. All right, so Lightning Tools has been around for 14 years. We're a Microsoft Gold partner in collaboration and content and also application development. And we've basically been building products over the last 14 years that enhance Microsoft SharePoint. And that started life obviously as SharePoint on premises, as that predates Office 365 and SharePoint Online. And as time has gone on, we've evolved our products to work with Microsoft SharePoint Online, both initially in the classic, but now in the modern, and of course also now in Microsoft Teams as well. And a lot of our customers that already use some of our products inside of SharePoint Online may not know that you can actually use those products with inside of Teams as well. If you're not seeing those show up inside Microsoft Teams, then you just need to jump into your app catalog and select the file, and you'll be able to sync to Teams, and that's going to make the products show up inside of Teams. There's no additional purchase necessary. If you've purchased for SharePoint Online, then you'll also be able to use them with inside the Teams environment as well. So the products that we're going to be talking about, as you can see on the circle here, there's a number of different products that we provide. So we've got things like content aggregation. So this is content aggregation around SharePoint lists, but also SharePoint search and Microsoft Graph. So you can bring in content from throughout Microsoft 365 and build reports on that content, either in a sort of grid view or table view layout that contains things like conditional formatting, or also inside of the sort of custom layouts as well. We've got things like calendar views, which we'll actually be taking a look at today as part of our leave booking system. But also other types of views like tile views and things like that you can create when you're aggregating things like files and folders. We'll also take a look at our discussion forum tool, and that's known as Social Squared. So this is a great product that fits well inside of Microsoft Teams and also SharePoint, and it enables users inside the organization to discuss topics with inside different discussion forums. And this could be used for sort of technical discussions where maybe you want to raise a question and gain an answer, not just for yourself, but if you've got that question, maybe a whole bunch of other people have as well. So you can go through and post a question, how do I reset my password, or whatever it might be, and somebody, perhaps a moderator or a subject matter expert, will be able to reply to you and keep on serving others inside your organization so that they benefit from the answer as well. Now, there's a lot of different types of discussion type software throughout Microsoft 365, but one thing that sets the discussion forum of Social Squared apart is the fact that it's structured into different forum groups and forums, and that makes it much easier to sort of jump to the right content. You're not scrolling through a chat window that's in chronological order. You're going straight to the type of content that you want to see based on the subject. We've also got a list form design tool, and the list form design tool we're going to have a quick look at today. It's mostly a SharePoint tool because it's working with SharePoint modern lists or classic lists, and you can take that and you can go through and customize the way that the list behaves. You can change the layouts, you can add things like validation and logic to your list forms, and we've used that to build this leave booking system today. So we're just going to take a quick look, but there is going to be a webinar on the 25th of June, I think it is, where we're going to actually build that solution, build a leave booking system from start to finish. So if you want to jump onto that webinar, I'll be showing you the link in order to register for that webinar at the end of this one today. So we've also got a couple of other tools. One of the ones that we're going to be focusing on is the data visualization. So we're going to build some charts around our leave booking system with the data viewer, and that's going to mean that we can go into Teams, or you can go into SharePoint and build things like pie charts or donut charts. You can create line, scatter charts or area charts, things like that. They can be single series or multiple series. We're going to build a multiple series chart today so we can see what's going on inside our leave booking system. And then finally, we're just going to take a look at DeliverPoint, which is our permissions management tool, and how we can then be certain as a team owner or as a SharePoint site owner that the right people can access our content that's inside our team that we're managing and throughout the channels. And of course, that includes all the lists and libraries and folders and files as well, which of course is a concern when there's things like sharing links that can be enabled so easily. We want to make sure that we're on top of that and the right people can access our content. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So as you can see here, we've got this holiday booking system, or like I say, if you're at the other side of the pond to me at the moment, it's a vacation booking system, whatever we want to call it. This is basically annual leave or the odd day off that you may want to book. And we're going to make sure that we can manage that through Microsoft Teams. So the first thing we've got is a leave. You can book leave through a custom list, and that list has been customized using Lightning Forms. In fact, it's made up of multiple lists, but we bring those lists together to build one single solution with inside a form. So you'll see that and how we've created some of the different aggregate functions and things and improved the layout of that form first of all. And we're just going to spend a few minutes on that since it's mostly SharePoint, not really Teams. And like I say, you'll be able to see exactly how that form has been built if you register for the next webinar. So we'll also then jump into the Lightning Conductor, and this is where we're going to build some reports based on holiday entitlement. So we'll be able to see how many holidays people have requested. We can look at the approval for those. We can see how many holiday days people have got left out of their entitlement and that type of thing. And of course, that could be managed for a small team inside of Teams, or also across the board with inside your organization. We'll also look at using the same product, using the Lightning Conductor to build a calendar, so we can easily see when our team members are going to be off, when they're not going to be inside the office or not going to be working from home, more importantly nowadays. So we'll be able to see that inside a calendar view and not just a table view. We'll then build the charts using the data viewer, and we'll have some discussions about sort of employment law and things like that around public holidays and annual leave. And finally, we will, like I say, take a look at DeliverPoint and how we can be sure that the right people can access our content. So let's start off with that brief look at Lightning Forms and how that can be used to build a solution inside of SharePoint and also Teams. So it is still relevant to Teams, because what I'm going to do is actually add a tab inside the team where we show the out-of-the-box SharePoint list, but with the customized form. So that form can be used throughout Teams in order to capture the information when we're booking some time off from our work. So let's just Alt-Tab and take a look at that solution. So we're going to jump into Teams right now. And so here in Teams, like I say, the list has been built in SharePoint. But what I'm going to do first of all is just add a tab to my team. And this team is the Lightning Tools Vacation Booking. So in here, we're going to ignore the Lightning Tools products for a moment. We're just going to come into the SharePoint tab. So as you know, we can add tabs to a Microsoft team or to a channel within inside a team. And under lists here are all the different lists that belong to the team site or to the team. And as you'll see in here, we've got this one called allowances, which is what I'm going to select. So we're just going to choose that and hit save. And we're then surfacing a Microsoft SharePoint list, a modern list inside the Microsoft team, so that people can go through and see that content. And what you'll be able to see in here is we've got a number of different team members. Each of those team members have a holiday quota, and out of that holiday quota, we can see how many remaining days they've got and how many days they've actually taken so far during this period. And here we've got the period start and the period end date, which is basically the calendar year. Okay, so where you'll see the customized form, if I show you the end solution, first of all, I'm going to click onto new, and in here you get that same experience with the modern form, but inside this modern form, you'll see we've got some changes to it, and one of those is we've got this sort of tabbed interface that we've created. So not only do we have the tabs that sort of declutter the form, but we've also got multiple columns as well, so you're not sort of scrolling up and down to see the entire form. We can actually get a lot more fields onto the form with inside the page view without having to scroll down too far. So in here, if we were to create a new team member, so you'll see I've calculated the title in a moment. I'm just going to go through and select a team member. So if I choose Sandy, for example, you can see how we've got this calculation going on here where it's taking the period start date and the period end date. And the remaining days and the days taken this period, I don't need to populate that because that's going to be populated automatically from actually another list. And that list is actually where we can go through and create those holiday bookings. And you'll see over here in the allocation that she starts off having the quota of 25 days. We can make some adjustments, and we can also make adjustments with the rollover days from the previous year. So starting off with 25 days, what we can do is go through and create a new booking. So in here we can have some form of holiday. So we'll have a beach holiday. Okay, just watch my typing. And this is going to be for Sandy, so we'll select Sandy, and we'll put in here just because. Okay, we've got the start date of that holiday, so the start and the end date in here, and that may have been sort of 5 days, working days that we're taking, and I can choose whether or not I'm going to approve that, and probably not actually. So I'll just save that one. And that has now created this beach holiday, but notice that I can keep on creating more holidays in here, and that is going to deduct those 5 days that I've taken this period from those remaining days. So we're actually able to work with this as a separate list. So the holiday bookings is a independent list, but I've embedded that independent list on the form here to build a solution. So we'll just save that, and that has been created, as you can see. So we've got that entry in there. And let me show you how that was created just briefly, but like I said, we're going to go into that in a bit more depth in next week's webinar. So in here, we've got the SharePoint modern list, and you'll notice there is Lightning Forms. And by clicking onto that, it launches the dialog box where I can choose which form I want to customize. And as you can see, the new form, the edit form, and the display form have all been customized. So if we go into the new form here, Lightning Forms is basically a integrated contextual form designer, and you can see those tabs that we created. So it's really easy. If you want to add sort of tab controls, we can go through and add those onto the form, which of course I've already done. We can add additional tabs if we want to, just by clicking onto that plus there. So that gives me my my third tab, which I can add and remove. I can also go through and choose when it's going to be visible. So maybe the allocation of vacation should not be done by the employee themselves, obviously. So what we could do is have that allocation being done only by members of a certain group, and that could be members of a human resources group or something to that effect. So we can go through and choose in here from things like the current user. I can say is member of group and put in the name of the group. So we could have HR approvers or something like that. And if you're a member of that group, then basically you get to see or use that tab. Anybody else won't be able to. And on here, we've also got that sub list that was created. So we can click onto the plus here and add additional fields however we want. We can add things like buttons with actions that call workflow or perform workflow routines. And at the bottom here, we've also got all the other lists that belong to this site. So to put this separate list, the holiday bookings list on there, I just needed to select that, and that gets embedded on the form. And now we've got two lists making up one form and therefore one solution. And the things like the remaining days, you can go through and build a calculation using that sublist. So notice, in fact, that one, sorry, it's taking the quota and making the adjustments, and the days taken this period. So it's the days taken this period that is actually being calculated from the sublist itself. So you can see here it's performing that sum function, and we can get to that very easily by just scrolling down here, choosing the number of days, and then choosing one of the aggregate functions, and we chose that sum function. All right, so really quick and easy to build some logic with inside your forms using that. So we'll just close that for now. And as you can see inside of Teams, we've now got that list. So when I go to create a new item, even inside Teams, you can still have that custom form experience showing up inside of Teams so that your users can use effectively a custom solution in order to gather data, and users can go through and create their holiday bookings. All right, so that's the first one. Now, what I want to do next is actually build on that. So we're going to move across to the Lightning Conductor and see how we can go through and build a report, such as holiday calendars and other reporting around the holiday allowances and number of days taken using the Lightning Conductor. So we'll jump back into Teams here, and clicking onto the Add a Tab, I'm going to go through and select the Lightning Conductor from the list of tabs, and we'll save that. So that has now been dropped onto the page. You can see that we're getting this sort of teal green coming through as the design, and that's basically the theme that's applied to the site here. So it's picking up the underlying SharePoint team site and using the same theme. So by changing the theme within inside your site, that will change the colors that you'll see in all of these apps when you add them as tabs inside of Teams. So inside the Lightning Conductor, we can actually build several different views. We've got the default view first of all, which I'm going to call this the allowances. So we'll have an allowances view, and we're going to click onto the cog icon to configure that. Now with the Lightning Conductor, you can very easily do a super fast roll up. We can go through and select the types of lists that we want to aggregate from. So it could be things like the generic ones like tasks, events, announcements, document libraries, and things like that. And we've got some sort of common scenarios. So if you were aggregating tasks, for example, we could show all the tasks, or we could show just my tasks, or my overdue tasks, and we can choose where that content is going to come from. So we can go to every single task list throughout the scope that you selected and build one single report based upon multiple lists. And in this scenario, what you could basically have is that leave booking system showing up in every single team for each of your different departments, and then using the Lightning Conductor to build an aggregation view of that, which might be used by human resources so that they understand across the board who's taking their leave. What I'm going to do here, though, is rather than choose one of those generic ones, we're going to jump into the advanced mode. And with the advanced mode, we can be more granular and build a report around a specific list, which is what I'm going to do here. So the Lightning Conductor has the capability of rolling up content from the search provider. So whatever you can search on inside of SharePoint, we can use that to build a report here inside the Lightning Conductor. We can also use the object model, which means we're basically going to go through, navigate to different sites, specify the type of list that we want to aggregate, and build our own report. Or you can use Microsoft Graph. And using Microsoft Graph, we can bring things like Planner and messages and OneDrive items or users, anything that is accessible via the Graph API, we can build a report on using the Lightning Conductor. So I'm going to use the object model for this one. I'm going to start off using the grid view display provider, which basically means I'm going to build a table view, very much like what you would see inside a modern list. But we've also got a JSON or an XSLT. And some of the JSON ones, we have some built-in styles, one of them being a calendar, which we're going to use next. But for this, we're just going to start off using a grid view. So going to the data source is we're basically going to go through and choose which list we're going to aggregate from. And we could choose lots of different lists based on the list type. So there we basically set our scope. So it could be the current site collection. So wherever a task list or wherever a document library lives inside the current site collection, that's the list or library that we want to report against. Or we can go through and select individual sites from different sites or site collections. We can also work with hub sites and associated sites and things like that. But for this one, I'm just going to be specific, and I'm going to just go to a single list here inside this underlying SharePoint site. And that's the list that we've customized using Lightning Forms, and it's called allowances. So I'm going to choose that one. And so the list type is relevant because I'm just going against a single list here. We can go through and set some other properties for the sort of look and feel of that list, but we're going to ignore those for now. I'm just going to come into the columns and choose which columns I'd like to see inside my report. So this is very much like creating a single view inside a SharePoint list. So in here, we're going to go and grab some of those columns. So we should have a we've got the team member. So the team member that's booking the time off. I've then got the remaining days, the quota. We've got the period start and the period end date, so we can make sure that they're included inside our view here. I've got things like prior year rollover and things like that, which we will go through and select. And we should have a number of days taken. We've got remaining days. What did I call that one? Days taken in spirit. There we go. So we can go through and grab that and sort of again, choose the order that these things are going to be displayed in. So I'm going to drop that straight in front of the remaining days there. There we go. So we've selected the columns. We've also got calculator columns that we can add as well. So if you want to create a calculator column, you can. And on the display, we can do things like data formatting. So I can make sure that we don't really need to see the date time. We just need to see the date. So I'll set these to render as a short date. And the rest of these are just going to be general numbers. So we'll leave those as they are. So other refinements that we can make is sort of showing sticky headers. So we always see the headers if we have to scroll down and things like that, which is fine. I'm just going to actually hit save though. So we get our report showing. So we are inside the Lightning Conductor. We've now got the allowances. And where this really comes into its own, imagine we're aggregating across multiple instances of this list, but now we can add things like conditional formatting and things like that to make this report even more powerful. So remaining days, if we've got maybe 1,000 employees, you're not really going to be able to sort of take in the information that you're seeing when it's just a number for each row. So what we're going to do there is add a data bar for the remaining days. And to do that, we can just basically come down here to the column settings and choose formatting. And rather than adding a condition, which I don't really need for this instance, we're just going to come in here and add a data bar. Now, the maximum days allocated is 25 because I'm mean. So we can go through and set that. And we can also choose a color for our data bar. We can also show or hide the underlying value here as well. So we can just hide that and rely on the data bar itself. If you want to see the detail, then you can click onto the item and open it up. So we'll just save that. And now you can see we've got this data bar, so you can easily see the remaining days vacation that everybody has. And unfortunately, Carl doesn't have any remaining days because he's taken too much already. So we've got that information in there. What we might want to also see is what happens if somebody takes the maximum number of days. So we could indicate that. So again, we could go through and add some column formatting. So if the days taken this period is greater than or equal to 25, so we can set that. Then we could go through and choose an icon or something. And here's a nice little airplane, which is suitable. So we can go through and set an icon there and choose whereabouts we want that icon to display. So we can just maybe stick it in the top left-hand corner of that cell value. And there we go. So we can have that stand out. We can see that Carl has taken his quota of holidays, and that's standing outside that row. So really straightforward to add that sort of thing. We can create conditional formatting and things like that very easily. So we're going to add another view to this, and that is going to be a calendar. So we'll add a calendar view, and this is actually going to go across a different list instance. So we're going to jump into the advanced mode again, and once more we're going to choose the object model, but this time we're going to render the results in a JSON view, and that JSON view is already created. I've already got a calendar view designed, so you don't need to go through and create that, although you can customize it if you want to, either using JSON or JavaScript, or you can do some things like select which columns you want to display and add conditional formatting and things like that without writing any code whatsoever. So under the data source, we're going to go through and navigate to a list again. So let's just choose all the lists. So I'm going to go against this holiday booking list and select that. We'll go to the columns tab, and in here we need to have of course, the end date of the holiday. We need to have the start date in here, and I'm also going to have the title. Now, the order in which these display doesn't really matter because it's going to be rendered as a calendar, so I'll just have those selected. But again, you could still add filters, you could add calculated columns and things like that if you wanted to. So on the display tab, in here is where we can choose the JavaScript file, the JSON. So in here we've got the Lightning Tools calendar.js, which I'm going to choose. And we can notice how you can map the different columns here. So for the start date, we just need to enter the start date and end date. I've made my life easy, by the way, with the naming of these. So we've got start date and end date, and the title is called title. But if ever you're unsure of what the actual column name is, you can just go to the columns tab, and if you hover over it, you'll see that internal name, and that's what we're after here when you go through to map those columns onto the calendar. So, so this doesn't just have to work with a calendar list. The booking list that I'm going against is actually a custom list. And I've devised my own start date and end date and title columns and so on. So it doesn't have to be an events list per se. It can work with anything that has a start date and end date and a title. So we can add some conditional formatting in a similar way to what we did before. So in here we can select the column that we want to add the conditional formatting to. And what I'm going to do actually is just jump back and add another one that says approved, so that I can add my conditional formatting against the approved. So if the vacation is approved, then what we'll do is we'll just render that in green. There we go. So we can see all the approved ones, and anybody looking at that calendar knows that they're then good to go on that vacation. So we've now got that calendar view, and what you'll notice is in the top left-hand corner, we can now select the view. So if we just close that, just let this display again, because we're now out of the edit mode, and I can choose my calendar view, and there we go. We've got all the approved holidays showing up inside a calendar coming from that list. And as we hover over it, we can see the detail. Of course, we can click onto that as well, and that will take us straight to the list item. We've got day, week, and month view. You can navigate around to obviously the different days and see exactly when your team are going to be here or not and working. Okay, so that's the kind of thing that we can do with the Lightning Conductor. It's really flexible. Like I say, you can work with document libraries. You can work with different types of lists in order to perform all of that, and a lot of the changes you can make actually here with inside the grid view as well. When you're working on that, if you also wanted to, you could make it very much a sort of report about you, because when you go into things like a people column, if I was to filter on that, we can pick up the page context and pull in things like the user, so we can pick up the current user and map that so that we're seeing a filtered view based on who the current user is. And Of course, we don't want it to just say Lightning Conductor at the top there. People won't necessarily know what that is. So what we can do is just rename that tab, and we'll have this as holiday booking calendar. And now everybody knows exactly what that tab is, and they can jump to that and see this calendar within inside the team, and navigate to that content. Okay, so we've got the Lightning Conductor showing up in two places. We've got the allowances, and we've also got the calendar in there. What I'm going to do now is just switch to another product, and that product is the data viewer. And one advantage that the data viewer has is the fact that it can go and connect to external data as well as SharePoint content. So external data, we could go against something like a SQL Azure database. We could connect to business connectivity services. We can also go against an Excel workbook, or a SharePoint list or an OData service and things like that. Have that as our data source, and then again we can either render the data as a table, or we can also render it as a chart. And that's why I'm going to use it here, is to actually build a chart so we can see some of these holiday bookings coming through into a chart. So we'll go through and add the data viewer onto the page. Okay, so again, completely unconfigured, so we're going to go through and configure it. So we'll hit configure, and in here we can go through and choose the data source. So like I say, if we chose Excel, the data source tab would allow me to navigate to an Excel workbook. If I was to choose SQL Azure, then the data source is now expecting me to connect to a SQL database. And if we went to an OData service, of course, we can give it an OData service URL, load the entities and select an entity for that. And we've also got business connectivity services where it's going to expect an external content type name, or we've got the SharePoint list. So other than that data source tab, everything else is going to remain the same. You've got the same functionality across all of those different data sources. So we're going to navigate down to the allowances list again. So we can select that and come into the columns. So in here are the different columns that I can choose. So sorry, one step I missed. I don't want that displaying in a grid view. I want it displaying in a chart view. There we are. So same thing, we'll go through and choose our columns. So in here we'll have the team member, and I want to have the quota displayed. I want to see the remaining days and the days taken this period. Oops, sorry, just deselected those by mistake. There we go. So we've got those selected. Now, because I've selected multiple columns, that's all we need to do when we're working with a multi-series chart. And of course, we could add filters on some of these columns that we're not displaying. So, so if I wanted to, for example, I could easily go through and filter on the period start, period end date. So we're always looking at the current period, and we're not looking at 2019 or anything like that. So hitting display, you're going to get a chart. It's going to randomly pick the colors that it wants. So it didn't do a great job of that this time around. I've got a sort of mustard yellow and a dirty green. But what we have got is all the different members, of course, coming in from our team here. So I'm going to go through and customize that. The quota is displayed here. So we've got the quota in pink. We've then got the remaining days. So I'm going to go through and change that. So I don't particularly like the color. So in here, we'll change the color here for sort of blue. We could also pick up that theme color if we wanted to, but I'm going to just go with this blue color here. And rather than having a line, we're going to display a column. So we'll just save that, and you can see that we've now got this column showing how many remaining days you've got. And I'm going to go through and do the same thing for the days taken this period. Of course, we could show things like an area, and that sort of has this opaque view, but that's not an ideal thing to do for this type of chart. So we're going to change that also to a column, and we'll choose a slightly different color and go with a lighter blue. So so we can save that and render that onto the page. So that's all we need to do on that one. We can go into the chart settings here and provide things like chart titles. We can display where the legend is going to be. We can change background colors and any sort of aspect of the chart can be set using that. We can also sort of make them stacked as opposed to side by side if it's a multiple series chart, and so on, just by setting those properties there. And yeah, you can also easily go through and build pie charts and things like that easily. So we'll hit save. Okay, and we've now got our chart displayed. And again, we might want to go through and rename that tab as we did before to display the chart ideally on the page. Okay, so really straightforward to build that, and also straightforward to customize it as well. Okay, so that's the data viewer. Let's go through and take a look at our next product, which is Social Squared. And with Social Squared, we're going to build a discussion forum, and we'll be able to design our own forum groups. We can create our own forums really easily, set up moderators and so on, so the moderators can approve the content that's going in, and I'll show you a reason why you might want to do that. And of course, you can reply to posts and that sort of thing, as you would expect from any sort of discussion board software. So it's available for SharePoint. Obviously, it works in Teams, and there's also a mobile application as well for it. So you can download that mobile app from the iOS or Android stores, or sorry, Apple Store, and configure that to work with your instance of Social Squared, so you can use it on a handheld device as well. So let's jump into our team again. Now, I've already gone through and created all the content for this. Otherwise, you just see me designing a blank discussion board, which is not too exciting. So I'm going to go through and select Social Squared, add that to the environment, and ordinarily what this will do when we add Social Squared to the environment is it will start to build the underlying SharePoint lists that are going to be used to store all the posts and attachments to posts and the configuration as well. But that part's already been done. All I'm doing is just adding this again, so I kind of cheated on that one. So you can actually see this content within inside of Teams, but what makes it really powerful is the fact that sometimes you have users that prefer to be in SharePoint. So what we can do is use that same employment discussion board here inside SharePoint. And what you'll see, if we were to go through, notice we've got this annual leave in here. So if I add a new topic, and the topic can be, I want some time away from home. So we can add that in here. So we've got our new topic, we can add that. And so that's added as a discussion. And what you'll see here when we navigate into that annual leave, that exact same post that I've just made here is showing up there. So some people could be replying to topics when the original creation for that topic was done in SharePoint or also via the mobile device as well. So in here we've got a number of different topics already. Before we sort of dive into those, let me show you how we can build out different forum groups, create different forums and things like that as well. But an ideal use for this, you can see the sort of structure. We've got a forum group for the holiday bookings with a forum called annual leave, and then we've also got our public holidays as well. And since we've got some US and UK employees, we've got one for each the US public holidays and the UK public holidays. So if we want to go through and configure this, we basically click onto this cog icon in the top left. This is where we can go through and add a forum group. So we might want a forum group for sick days. So we can go through and add that in here. So we've now got a new forum group there. And if we were to go into the forum group, we could add a new forum, and we'll just call this one, I don't know, days off sick. Okay, and in here we can also set a moderator as well. So moderators, as I do a search for a moderator, if I select a moderator in here, that moderator can basically approve or decline the posts that are being made within inside that forum, which is really ideal for things like a discussion forum around sort of questions and answers, so that you can sort of moderate the answers as well. Make sure that those moderators are subject matter experts. So that's how we can create a forum group and a forum. If we go into an existing forum where we've got some content, you can see there's a number of different topics in here, and some people are missing the point. So we've got demo user 1 has said, please can I book next Friday off? Well, this isn't the place to ask that. You actually use the holiday booking system if you want to do that rather than having a discussion. This is more about the sort of legalities around employment law and holiday bookings and that sort of thing. So what I could do as a moderator is go in and remove that post because it shouldn't be in here. All I'm going to do though is just actually go through and reply to them. So I can sort of downvote this. This is not good. Let's give them a low rating as well. And I'll tell them exactly why. So let's go through and reply. And in here, we've got this sort of rich text formatting that we can do. I'm just going to basically say, please use the holiday booking system to request holidays. Okay, and we can highlight that, make it really stand out, make it obvious to them. So we can choose our highlighting color. There we go. And we've got sort of motion icons and things like that we can do in here. So that seems quite appropriate. So we can go through and select that and do whatever sort of formatting we want. In fact, we could, hyperlink to that holiday booking system. So I could go and grab the URL for it, wherever it may be. So this is where you go. So we'll jump back into Teams and just drop that in here, or make that a hyperlink. There we go. So really straightforward to do all of that stuff. We can copy and paste images in here as well if we wanted to, and resize that image, or you can upload images and that sort of thing into this forum here. So I'll hit reply, and there's my my response, and everybody can sort of give that the thumbs up or hit like and that sort of thing. And of course, we could also go through and mark that as answered as well. Okay, so other things you can do, you can move topics, we can delete topics, we can lock it so nobody else can reply to it anymore. In fact, I don't want any of these sort of me too. I also have next Friday off, so I'll lock it for that reason. We can show threaded views, we can show answers, we can also subscribe to the topic as well if we wanted to, which I certainly won't do on this one. But if we look at something a bit more useful, so we've got things like how much notice is required to book a holiday. That's the sort of thing that we do want to see in here. So that's a good question. We could, like that, give it a high rating, and do whatever we want to do, reply to it, mark it as answered, and that sort of thing. All right, so you've seen how we can reply and that sort of thing. We can add new topics very easily. So that's just like replying, where we give it a subject and a body, and so on, and that will create a new topic in here. And you'll see some of the things like if it's locked or if it's been marked as answered, that becomes obvious in the view as well. So some of the other settings that you've got down on the left hand side here, we've got the forum settings where we can go through and edit the properties as you saw. We've also got the popular topics, so we can see those in there based on the number of views. We can also see recent activities that have taken place, so we can jump to that if we visit Social Squared periodically. That's one of the benefits of a discussion board. It's not like you're staring at your email all day long waiting for a next email to come in. You go and look at this when it's appropriate, so you can see what's new by coming to the recent activities view. And we've also got this tag cloud here as well. So you can tag content really easily using any tag word that you like. And then if we want to sort of jump to something like holiday entitlement, we can just click onto that, and it will take me straight to a post that has been tagged with that keyword. And yeah, so that's really straightforward to sort of jump around and see that content. Of course, it also has its own search as well. So if we just did a search for the word sick, that brings back any posts in there. We've also got more results and we can give it a time frame that we want to filter by as well. All right, so it's really straightforward to use, and there's also some properties that we can see when we go into the settings. So there's different sort of rich text editing options that we can enable. We've also got this forum group section. So maybe actually, we don't want the sick bit being in here. It's not appropriate, but we could display it in another channel somewhere. So all I want to do here is just have the holiday bookings, in fact. So what we can do in here is just go through into the settings and specify that I want to just display holiday bookings. And that's the only forum group that will actually render here. But I could go and choose other forum groups that render in other channels that use the same content. And then there's just a few other refinements about how many topics per page do we display? Do we want badges for gamification? And the application ID, which is used for the mobile app. So that displays the right content in your mobile app there. And we could also come in and rename this to holiday discussions and save that. Now, the other thing that you can do with Social Squared that you can't do with the data viewer and the Lightning Conductor is go through and actually add it as a personal app on the left-hand side here. So again, there's no additional purchase or anything. It's if you've bought it for SharePoint, you can use it in Teams. You can also use it in a Teams tab, or you can use it as a personal app. And the benefit of the personal app is it's not specific to a team. So if you wanted something that is sort of generic across the board, across all of these different forums, you can simply go through and add it here. So hitting the ellipsis, you can do a search. So there's Social Squared forums. We can select that, and notice here that it can be added to a tab or as a personal app. And in there you can either open it because I've already added it, or add it to a team. So as we go through and select that, we can go into Social Squared, and like I say, it's not team specific. This is something that we can use as an entire organization. So in here, I've just created a simple example of a discussion forum or discussion board of things to sell and fun recipes. Okay, so that's the kind of thing that we can do with Social Squared. And we've got one tool left to take a look at, and that is DeliverPoint. So DeliverPoint is a permissions tool, and with it, you can, of course, use it in SharePoint. You can also use it in Teams as well. And it's useful where you've got all the sharing going on with files and folders, adding and removing users to different groups and giving them different permissions inside of SharePoint. It becomes quite difficult to manage, especially when we've got things like permission inheritance being broken and things like that. So with DeliverPoint, what we're going to do is you'll be able to see it inside of SharePoint here. So in the top right hand corner, I've got my permission reports. So I can do things like discover the permissions, see who's got access to this site and that sort of thing. And we can also do it with inside SharePoint lists and libraries and so on as well. And I can see exactly how these users have been permissioned, whether it's directly or through an AD group and that type of thing. And when you log on as any other user, still logged in here as demo user 2, notice that that demo user doesn't see the icon and therefore can't produce the permission reports against this particular site. You need to have the right level of access. You need to have full control in order to do that. So what we can do is also surface that inside of Teams as well as a personal app. So as we choose DeliverPoint inside of Teams, it's going to default to this Microsoft Teams view. I think my tenant's going on a go slow, just bear with me. Let's just refresh this. Okay, so that's just refreshing for a moment. Seems my tenant has definitely gone on a go slow. Even that took a while to to load a second ago. Never mind, let's just leave that there for a second, and I'll show you since we had that up already in SharePoint, and then we'll jump back to Teams in a second. So what we have in DeliverPoint is the ability to, like I say, discover permissions. We can also look at permissions across different sites or site collections and things like that as well. And that includes a Teams view. And the Teams view shows me all the different teams, but also those channels as well within inside those teams. And from there, we can select any one of those and produce the permissions report. It has eventually loaded. There we go. So, yeah, notice how it's defaulted to that Teams view. So we can start to select things like our vacation booking system here. And from the reports menu, we can produce all sorts of different reports. We can see things like the discover permissions. So I can determine who's got access to this particular site, how they gained their access to it. We've also got sharing links. So if somebody shared a link with anybody, then we can go through and see those. And we've also got things like unlicensed users or dead accounts, which means they might not have a SharePoint license assigned to them, or they're a dead account because they no longer live inside the Active Directory. They've been removed, but they're still a member of my team, or they still have SharePoint permissions. We can also see things like external users as well. We can include the private channels to that. So if we want to have a sort of external user report, see who the external users are, then we can do that. And then we've also got other operations as well, such as copying, transferring, deleting permissions. So if you've got somebody that is perhaps leaving your team, they're going to perform another role. So I've just realized why things are starting to go slow. Just bear with me. There we go. It should pick up now. Realized I was running a process in the background. All right, so let's just execute that again. It should be a lot faster this time. With a bit of luck. So yeah, we've got the ability to copy, transfer, delete permissions. So as users change roles inside the organization, we can move their permissions around between users and things like that. So transferring permissions, we just choose who we're transferring from and to, and it will perform that operation. And we can also revoke permissions. So if we want to take somebody away from multiple teams all in one go, then we can do that as well. So in here, we can select as many teams as we like. If somebody's left the organization, we can basically simply go through to deleting their permissions, and that will remove them as a member. And there's other views as well that we've got in here, things like the hubs view. So you can see this is much faster now that I've killed that process. There we are. So if I was to go through and just execute that report again, just to show you, so the discover permissions now, instantaneous, there we are. And we've got things like the external users, instantaneous, that's what I was expecting. So these are the reports that we can produce against multiple teams. And we've also got things like the hubs view that I was explaining as well. So I can go through and discover permissions and things like that on other sort of SharePoint sites and see how those users are permissioned, whether it's directly or through AD security groups and that type of thing. So it just makes managing permissions so much easier when you can do it in bulk for bulk reporting and also bulk changes to your permissions. Okay, so that's effectively DeliverPoint. And what I'm going to do here is just open up for any questions. If anybody does have any questions, please use the questions panel so you can post your questions in there. Or if you prefer, you can raise your hand and then I can unmute you and you can ask your question. Or just drop me an email at brett@lightningtools.com and I'll be able to answer any questions that you might have there. The QR code that you're seeing on screen, that's if you want to register for our next webinar, which is going to be on Lightning Forms, and we're going to go through and build that leave booking system from start to finish inside that webinar there. Okay, so any questions at all? Just give you a moment to ask any. All right, I'm not seeing any questions. So once again, if if a question does spring to mind, please drop me an email on brett@lightningtools.com. I'll be happy to answer that. Or of course, if you want to join that webinar um, on the 25th of June to explore more with Lightning Forms, you're welcome to do that. And don't forget that the first Thursday of every month, we demonstrate different solutions using SharePoint web parts. So you'll see the same sort of web parts today, but a different solution that you can build to give you some sort of thoughts on how you might want to use these products. And every third Thursday of the month, we're going to be focusing in on Teams. And next time we do this, it won't be a leave booking system. We'll actually be using the same products to build a different application. So you'll get to see lots of different sides to the Lightning Conductor data viewer and different things that you can do using those products. So thanks very much, everybody, for attending. I hope you found this useful and look forward to seeing you soon.